The alarm screamed through the Galactic Council's monitoring station like a wounded animal. Operative Threlva jumped in his seat, his four eyes widening as red lights flooded his workstation. His hands moved quickly across the controls, pulling up the source of the distress signal. It came from mining colony Theta 9, a small settlement on the edge of known space. The Velthori people ran it, peaceful creatures who spent their lives digging rare minerals from dead planets. They never bothered anyone. They had no weapons, no military, nothing but mining equipment and dreams of a quiet life. Threlva's throat tightened as he read the message. Raiders, unknown ships. Moving fast, the colony had maybe 300 souls, mostly families. Children. Get me the response fleet, Threlva shouted to his supervisor. Now. Supervisor Krelix moved slowly, as his species always did. Everything required proper procedure. File the emergency code first. Then we submit to the council. Then they authorize the response fleet. You know the rules, Threlva. There's no time for rules. People are dying. There is always time for proper procedure, Krelix said calmly. This is what separates us from barbarians. Threlva wanted to scream, but he filed the emergency code. He filled out the forms. He waited for the authorization. 37 minutes passed before the council approved the response fleet deployment. When the ships finally launched, the computer calculated their arrival time, 6 hours and 14 minutes. The colony would be gone by then. Everyone knew it. But procedure was procedure. Threlva watched the distress signal grow weaker. The colony's power systems were failing. He imagined the Velthori huddling in their shelters, holding their children close, waiting for help that would arrive too late. His hands shook with frustration and rage. Then something impossible happened. A new contact appeared on his screen, a massive energy signature, moving faster than anything Threlva had ever seen. It wasn't the Council's response fleet. Those ships were still hours away, crawling through space at their approved maximum speeds. This vessel moved like a comet, like something alive and angry. What is that? Krelix demanded, leaning over Threlva's shoulder. I don't know. The computer says it's coming from the human sector. Krelix made a dismissive sound. Humans, that minor species. They barely have FTL capability. Their ships are slow. Their technology outdated. The computer must be wrong. But the computer wasn't wrong. The signature grew stronger as the unknown vessel approached the colony at impossible speeds. Threlva pulled up everything he knew about humans. They were new to the galactic community, barely 10 years since first contact. They lived on a planet called Earth, somewhere in a quiet arm of the galaxy. The Council had granted them limited trading rights and restricted travel permits. Most species considered them irrelevant, too primitive to matter. The distress signal from the colony changed. Instead of the automated beacon, a live voice came through, panicked and desperate. It was Velmore, the colony administrator. Unknown vessel approaching. Energy readings are off the scale. It's not slowing down. It's going to... The transmission cut to static for 3 seconds. Then a new voice came through, speaking perfect galactic standard with a strange accent. The voice was calm, almost gentle, but something in its tone made Threlva's skin prickle. This is USCS Indomitable. We have detected your distress call. Do not fear. Brace for impact. The channel closed. Threlva stared at his screen. Did they just say, brace for impact? Krelix's face had turned a pale shade of blue. That's a human warship. They're not authorized to be in that sector. They're not authorized to respond to distress calls. This is a violation of a dozen different treaties. But they're there, Threlva whispered. They're actually there. This is unacceptable. Contact the Council immediately. The humans must be stopped before they cause a diplomatic incident. Threlva wanted to laugh. A diplomatic incident? The colony was under attack by raiders and Krelix worried about diplomatic incidents? But he made the call. Within minutes, the council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 200 species all talked at once, demanding answers, explanations, consequences. Meanwhile, the human ship reached the colony. Threlva activated the surveillance drones, the small remote cameras that drifted through space recording everything. He needed to see what would happen. He needed to know if the humans would actually help or if they would make everything worse. The images came through, and Threlva forgot how to breathe. The human warship was enormous, larger than anything the Council operated. Its hull was dark gray, covered in armor plating that looked thick enough to stop a meteor. Weapons bristled from every surface, though Threlva couldn't identify most of them. The ship didn't look elegant like Vrex vessels or organic like Shrell designs. It looked brutal, functional, built for one purpose. War. The Indomitable didn't slow down as it approached the planet. Instead, it did something insane. It dove toward the planet's gravity well at full speed, using the planet's own mass to whip itself around in a tight arc. As it screamed past the colony, objects shot from its sides like bullets. 50 of them, maybe more. What are those? Krelix demanded. Threlva zoomed in the cameras. Drop pods. They're dropping soldiers directly onto the surface. At that speed? They'll be killed on impact. But the pods didn't break apart. They hit the ground like meteors, cratering into the dirt and rock around the colony. Steam and dust filled the air. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the pods opened. Humans emerged, covered in heavy armor, carrying weapons that looked primitive but deadly. They didn't stumble or fall. They didn't seem hurt at all. They simply stood up, checked their weapons, and started running toward the raiders' positions. Threlva watched in stunned silence as the humans attacked. They didn't use tactics he recognized. They didn't follow standard combat doctrine. They just moved forward, relentless and unstoppable, like a force of nature. The raiders started shooting back, but the humans didn't slow down. Some fell, but others kept coming. They made sounds, war cries that the translators couldn't properly convert. The sounds came through as rage and determination mixed together. Krelix backed away from the screen. What are they? Threlva didn't answer. He couldn't. He just watched as humanity showed the galaxy what they really were. And the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. Sergeant Marcus Webb hit the ground hard. The impact rattled his teeth and compressed his spine, but the pod's shock absorption system did its job. He'd done this 100 times in training and a dozen times in real operations. Still hurt like hell, though. Sound off. He barked into his comm. Alpha Squad, all green, came the first response. Bravo Squad, green. Jones broke his arm, but he says he's good. Charlie Squad reporting. We're good to go, Sarge. Marcus punched the release button. The pod's front panel blew outward with explosive bolts and sunlight flooded in. He grabbed his rifle and stepped out onto alien soil for the first time in his life. The air tasted strange, and the gravity felt lighter than Earth's. Everything seemed easier somehow. Around him, 49 other pods had landed in a rough circle around the colony. Marines emerged from each one, checking weapons and forming up into squads. They moved quickly, efficiently, like they'd done this 1,000 times before because they had. Just not on an alien world with actual aliens watching. Marcus activated his tactical display. The colony's layout appeared in his helmet's heads-up display, marked with red dots showing enemy positions. 50 raiders had attacked the colony. They'd breached the outer walls and were moving toward the residential sector, where the Velthori families huddled in fear. All squads, converge on the residential sector. Rules of engagement are tight. No civilian casualties. I don't care if these raiders use the colonists as shields. We find a way. Understood? A chorus of affirmatives came back. Then let's go get our new friends out of trouble. Move! The Marines ran. Not jogged, not advanced tactically. They ran at full sprint across the colony grounds. The lighter gravity meant they covered ground faster than they ever could on Earth. Some Marines actually laughed as they ran, enjoying the sensation. The raiders saw them coming. They were Kresic, a species known across the galaxy for hitting soft targets and running before help arrived. They looked like upright lizards covered in green scales and armed with standard plasma rifles. They'd been doing this for years, raiding colonies on the edge of space where the Council's response times were measured in hours. They'd never faced humans before. The Kresic opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up the air, bright blue streaks of superheated gas that could punch through most armor. Several bolts hit Marines dead center. The Marines staggered but kept running. One Kresic raider stared in disbelief as a human he'd just shot in the chest kept coming. The plasma had scorched the armor black, but the human inside seemed fine. Angry, actually. Very angry. The Marine, a corporal named Davies, raised her rifle and fired. The kinetic round hit the Kresic in the shoulder, spinning him around. He fell screaming. Kinetic weapons? Another raider shouted in disbelief. They're using ballistic projectiles? What century do they live in? But the old-fashioned bullets worked just fine. They didn't have the range of plasma weapons or the power of particle beams, but they were simple, reliable, and deadly. More importantly, The humans could carry thousands of rounds without worrying about power cells or coolant systems. Marcus and his squad reached the first building where raiders had cornered a group of Velthori civilians. The Velthori looked like tall, slender deer with soft fur and large eyes. 3 of them were children, pressing close to their parents. 5 raiders held them at gunpoint. "Put down your weapons, humans," the lead raider shouted. "Or we start killing hostages." Marcus held up his hand, signaling his squad to stop. He lowered his rifle slowly, making it look like he was surrendering. The raiders relaxed slightly. They'd done this before. Threaten the civilians, make the heroes back down, then escape in the confusion. They didn't know about Private Chen, who'd circled around the building while they were focused on Marcus. They didn't know about the breaching charge she'd placed on the back wall. They didn't know humans had a saying, "We don't negotiate with terrorists." The back wall exploded inward. Chen came through the smoke firing. Her first 3 rounds took down 2 raiders before they could react. Marcus and his squad rushed forward. The remaining raiders tried to shoot the hostages, but they were too slow. Marines grabbed them, physically tackling them to the ground with a violence that shocked everyone watching. One raider tried to fight back. Marine Kowalski, a big man from Earth's Poland region, simply punched him in the face. The raider's helmet cracked. He stopped fighting. The entire engagement lasted 8 seconds. Marcus knelt beside the Velthori family. The father stared at him with wide, terrified eyes. Marcus removed his helmet, showing his face. He smiled, trying to look friendly despite the adrenaline still pumping through his system. "You're safe now," he said gently. "We're here to help." The Velthori father made a sound that Marcus's translator interpreted as a sob of relief. The mother gathered her children close, all of them shaking. "Sarge, we've got more civilians trapped in the central square," Davies reported. 20 raiders holding maybe 100 colonists. Marcus stood, replacing his helmet. "Then we go get them. Alpha and Bravo, with me. Charlie, secure these civilians and provide medical aid." They moved through the colony like a storm. The raiders tried to fight back, but they were used to fighting other species. Species that valued their own lives, that retreated when hurt, that followed civilized rules of warfare. Humans didn't retreat. When hurt, they got angry, and their rules of warfare had been written on a death world where everything tried to kill everything else for 4 billion years. Private Jackson took a plasma bolt to the leg. It burned through his armor and cauterized the wound instantly. He screamed, fell to one knee, and kept shooting. When his squad tried to pull him back for medical attention, he waved them off. "I'm fine. Keep moving." He wasn't fine. The wound was serious, but he would die before he left the fight while civilians needed help. That was the human way. The battle for the central square was the hardest. The raiders had dug in, using the colonists as shields. But Marines came from 3 directions at once, moving fast and shooting accurately. They used grenades to create smoke screens, then rushed through the smoke before the raiders could react. One raider grabbed a Velthori child, holding a knife to the child's throat. "Back off or the child dies." Corporal Martinez shot him through the head from 70 meters away. One shot between the eyes while the raider was moving. The child fell, caught by another Marine before hitting the ground. Martinez didn't celebrate. She just moved to the next target. 23 minutes after the first pod hit dirt, the battle was over. The raiders who weren't dead had thrown down their weapons and surrendered. They begged for mercy from the demons in a language the translators struggled to process. Marcus stood in the center of the colony, watching his Marines provide medical aid to the wounded Velthori. Others were already repairing damaged buildings or distributing food from the Indomitable's supplies. The colony administrator, Velmore, approached cautiously. He was shaking, his fur matted with dust and fear sweat. You saved us," he whispered. "We thought we were dead. The Council's ships wouldn't arrive for hours. But you came. You came so fast," Marcus shrugged. "Someone called for help. We answered. That's what we do, but how? How did you move so quickly? How did you survive those impacts? How did you fight through plasma fire?" Marcus smiled, though Velmore couldn't see it through his helmet. "We're from Earth. Where we come from, everything is harder. Higher gravity, more dangerous predators, harsher conditions. He gestured at the battlefield. This was a good day. High above, the USCS Indomitable orbited silently, its weapons trained on the space around the planet. The raiders' ships, seeing what had happened to their ground forces, decided retreat was the better option. They jumped to FTL and ran, But the galaxy was watching. Surveillance drones had captured everything. The Council had seen it all, and the galaxy's understanding of humanity changed forever in those 23 minutes. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked into the Galactic Council chamber with her head held high. Around her, 200 species filled the massive circular room. Some sat in chairs, some floated in liquid tanks, some hung from the ceiling. They all stared at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. She was the only human in the room. The chamber itself was beautiful in a cold, impersonal way. White walls rose 30 meters high, covered in symbols from every member species. The floor was polished stone that reflected the lights above. At the center stood the speaker's platform where Council Leader Zephrix waited. Zephrix was Vrex, a crystalline being that caught and reflected light in dazzling patterns. Right now, those patterns showed anger. Ambassador Chen. Zephrix's voice echoed through the chamber, translated into 200 languages simultaneously. You stand before this council to answer for humanity's actions at mining colony Theta 9. Actions that violated no fewer than 12 treaties, 17 protocols, and the fundamental principles upon which this council was founded. Sarah clasped, her hands behind her back, a neutral expression on her face. She'd practiced this moment for days. I'm here to answer any questions the council has. Questions? Questions? A representative from the Torval Collective jumped to their feet. They looked like a floating mass of tentacles, pulsing with bioluminescence. Your species deployed a warship into restricted space. You engaged in military action without council authorization. You violated the territorial sovereignty of... We saved 300 lives, Sarah interrupted calmly. The chamber erupted in noise. Everyone started talking at once. Some shouted in anger. Others demanded order. A few, Sarah noticed, remained silent. Those were the ones who'd lost people to raiders before. The ones who knew what it meant to wait 6 hours for help. Zephrix raised one crystalline arm. Silence fell gradually. Ambassador Chen, you will not interrupt members of this council. You will show proper respect for... With respect, Council Leader, I'm showing the exact amount of respect appropriate for a body that would rather watch people die than skip a few forms. The chamber exploded again. This time the shouting was louder, angrier. Several representatives demanded Sarah be removed. Others called for sanctions against humanity. The Torval representative actually started moving toward her, tentacles writhing in rage. Sarah stood perfectly still, waiting for them to calm down. She'd expected this. Hell, she'd planned on it. Finally, a gentle voice cut through the chaos. Please, everyone, please. The room quieted. Velmore, the administrator from the mining colony, stood at a guest podium. The council had allowed him to attend as a witness. His voice shook as he spoke. I was there. I watched my people prepare to die. We knew the council's response fleet wouldn't arrive in time. We'd already made peace with it. His voice broke. I held my daughter and told her everything would be okay, even though I knew it was a lie. Tears rolled down his furry face. Then the humans came. They fell from the sky like meteors. They fought through weapons that should have killed them. They didn't ask for payment. They didn't demand anything. They just helped. Because we needed help. Velmore turned to face the council directly. You want to punish them for that? For saving us when you couldn't? When you wouldn't? It's not about wouldn't, Zephrix said, but his tone had softened slightly. It's about proper procedure. Order must be maintained or we descend into chaos. Sarah saw her opening. Order? Is that what you call it? A system where people fill out forms while innocents die? Where proper procedure matters more than lives? You don't understand the complexities involved, a Shrell representative said. The Shrell looked like giant insects with multiple arms and compound eyes. We represent 200 species, each with different laws, territories, and treaties. Every action requires consensus. Every deployment must be authorized. Without these rules, we would have constant conflict. So instead you have efficient inaction, Sarah said. You've created a system so focused on preventing conflict that it can't actually help anyone. That's not fair, another representative objected. The response fleet was deployed according to protocol. 6 hours too late. That was the fastest possible response given the distances involved and the need for proper authorization. Sarah pulled out a data pad. Let me share some information about the USCS Indomitable. When we received the distress call, we were in the middle of a training exercise 3 light-years away. We broke off immediately, calculated the fastest route, and arrived in 1 hour and 17 minutes. She looked around the chamber. Your nearest response ship was only 2 light-years away, but it took 37 minutes just to get authorization to launch. Then it traveled at approved maximum speed, which is about half of what its engines could actually do if you allowed emergency protocols. Emergency speeds are dangerous, Zephrix said. They risk the lives of the crews. So you'd rather risk the lives of civilians than the crews who signed up to protect them? That's a gross oversimplification. Is it? Because from where I stand, it looks pretty simple. People were dying. You had ships that could help, but you chose rules over lives. The chamber fell silent. Sarah knew she was being harsh, maybe too harsh, but somebody needed to say it. The council had become so focused on procedure that it had forgotten its purpose. A representative from the Quelon species stood. The Quelon looked like small, blue teddy bears, and they were generally considered wise and fair. Ambassador Chen, I understand your frustration, but surely you see the danger in allowing any species to take military action without oversight. What happens when someone abuses that freedom? Sarah nodded. That's a fair concern. But what you have now doesn't work either. The raiders knew your response times. They planned around them. They've been hitting colonies on the edges of your territory for months because they know they can be gone before help arrives. She pulled up a holographic display, showing a map of raider attacks over the past year. Red dots filled the edges of council space. 37 colonies attacked, 1,200 casualties, millions in stolen goods, and you've caught exactly 0 raiders because they're always gone before your ships arrive. The silence deepened. Everyone in the chamber knew about the raider problem. It was an embarrassment, but no one had a solution that fit within the rules. We captured 42 raiders at Theta 9. Sarah continued. They're alive and ready to stand trial. They surrendered because they were terrified. Not of our weapons, not of our ships. They were terrified because we showed up fast and hit hard, and they realized they couldn't plan around us. Because you ignore the rules, Zephrix said. Because we prioritize results over procedure, Sarah corrected. There's a difference. And what of the weapons treaties? The Torval representative demanded. Your ship's energy output suggests weapon systems far beyond what you declared during your admission to the council. You lied to us. Sarah smiled slightly. We didn't lie. We declared our defensive capabilities exactly as specified in the treaty. The treaty said to list our shield systems, point defense systems, and armor ratings. We did that. The treaty never asked about offensive weapons. That's a technicality. That's reading the contract carefully. You made assumptions about what our defensive capabilities meant. That's not our fault. Zephrix's crystalline form flickered with different colors showing inner turmoil. So what do you want, Ambassador? Why are you really here? Are you asking for forgiveness? Seeking to negotiate reduced penalties? Sarah shook her head. Neither. I'm here to tell you that humanity is starting something new. We're calling it the Rapid Response Initiative. Any species that wants to prioritize immediate action over bureaucratic delay can join. We'll respond to distress calls together as fast as possible with appropriate force. The chamber exploded for the 3rd time. Representatives shouted over each other. Some called it rebellion. Others called it necessary. A few called it insane. Through the chaos, Sarah saw Velmore watching her. He was smiling through his tears. Behind him, representatives from 17 other species were also watching carefully. Species that had lost people to raiders. Species that were tired of waiting for help that arrived too late. Zephrix finally restored order. His voice was cold as ice. You would divide the council. Create a faction that operates outside our authority. I would create an option for people who want help to arrive in minutes instead of hours, Sarah said. The council is welcome to join, but we're not waiting for permission anymore. Then you leave us no choice but to sanction humanity, to restrict your travel, limit your trade, and good luck with that, Sarah interrupted one last time. Because while you're filing the paperwork, we'll be out there answering distress calls. And every species that joins us will see what you really are, a committee that values procedures over people. She turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the chamber descended into chaos again. But she'd said what she came to say. As the doors closed behind her, Sarah's aide rushed up. Ambassador, do you really think that went well? You've probably made enemies of half the council. Sarah smiled. Maybe. But I bet we get at least 20 species applying to join the initiative by tomorrow. Sometimes you have to break things before you can fix them. High above, in orbit around the council homeworld, the USCS Indomitable waited patiently, just in case. Warmaster Krashok studied the report with growing disbelief. His claws tapped against his command chair, a nervous habit he'd never quite broken. Around him, the bridge of his flagship remained silent. Everyone knew better than to speak when the Warmaster was thinking. The report came from the survivors of the Theta 9 raid. 42 of his warriors captured. The Kresic Dominion hadn't suffered such a loss in decades. They were raiders, specialists in hitting fast and disappearing before response forces arrived. They didn't get captured, but these humans had changed everything. Tell me again, Krashok said to his intelligence officer. How long did it take them to arrive? 1 hour and 17 minutes, Warmaster. From the moment the distress call went out. Impossible. The nearest council response ship was 2 light-years away and took 6 hours. The humans were 3 light-years away, Warmaster. They just moved faster. Krashok's scales darkened with anger. And our warriors? How many humans did they kill? The intelligence officer hesitated. That hesitation told Krashok everything he needed to know. None, Warmaster. The humans suffered casualties. Several were wounded, but none died. They wear heavy armor and seem remarkably resilient to plasma fire. 50 of our best warriors couldn't kill a single human. The humans didn't fight like other species. They didn't retreat when wounded. They didn't seek cover. They just kept coming forward no matter what we threw at them. Krashok stood and walked to the viewing screen. Outside, the Kresic home fleet floated in formation around their shipyards. Hundreds of vessels, from small raiders to massive battle cruisers. The pride of the Dominion. What do we know about human military capabilities? He asked. His strategic advisor stepped forward. She was younger than Krashok, ambitious and smart. Very little, Warmaster. They've been part of the galactic community for only 10 years. They've kept their military strength deliberately vague. The Council estimates they have perhaps 3 or 4 warships based on their population and industrial capacity. The Council's estimates are clearly wrong. Perhaps. But Warmaster, consider this. They may have deployed their entire fleet to that colony. It could have been a desperate gamble, trying to prove themselves to the galaxy. They got lucky. Krashok turned to face her. Lucky? You call that lucky? They caught our raiders off guard. Our warriors weren't expecting resistance. If we sent a proper war fleet, humans wouldn't stand a chance. Their technology is primitive. Kinetic weapons? Ballistic armor? They're decades behind us. Another advisor nodded eagerly. We could teach them a lesson, Warmaster. Show the galaxy what happens when minor species overstep their bounds. The Council would likely thank us for putting the humans in their place. Krashok considered this. The humans had embarrassed the Dominion. Worse, they'd inspired others. His intelligence reports showed 17 species signing up for their Rapid Response Initiative. The Council's authority was weakening. If the Dominion could crush the humans quickly, it would restore the proper order of things. And if the humans really had only 3 or 4 warships, this would be easy. Prepare a war fleet, Krashok ordered. 50 ships. We'll jump directly into their home system and destroy their orbital infrastructure. No raiding this time. We'll show them what real military power looks like. His staff scrambled to obey. Within hours, 50 warships gathered in formation. Krashok stood on his bridge, surrounded by holographic displays showing every ship in his fleet. This was overkill, probably, but he wanted the message to be clear. All ships prepare for jump to the Sol system. On my mark, the fleet jumped. Space bent and twisted around them as they entered faster than light travel. For 3 days, they traveled through the strange dimension between stars. Krashok spent the time planning his attack. He would hit Earth's orbital stations first, then demand surrender. If the humans refused, he would destroy their shipyards and military bases. Not their cities, though. He wasn't a monster. just enough destruction to make his point. When they emerged into normal space at the edge of the Sol system, Kreshak felt confident. The humans would see his fleet and realize they were outmatched. This would be over quickly. Then his sensors officer made a sound that Kreshak had never heard before. A sort of strangled gasp. "War Master, you need to see this." The tactical display updated. Kreshak's confident smile faded. There were ships in the Sol system. Many ships. His computer counted them automatically. 48 warships of various sizes. 300 orbital defense platforms. Thousands of smaller automated defense satellites. And something else, something his sensors struggled to identify at first. "What am I looking at?" he demanded. "Mines, War Master. Billions of them, spread throughout the system. They're primitive, just explosive charges with basic guidance systems, but there are so many." Kreshak's blood ran cold. This wasn't 3 or 4 ships. This was a full military fleet, backed by extensive defensive systems. The humans hadn't deployed their entire fleet to Theta 9. They'd sent one ship. One. How many ships did they actually have? A communication channel opened. An image appeared on the main screen. A human female in military uniform. Her face calm and professional. Behind her, Kreshak could see a massive bridge filled with activity. "This is Admiral Sarah Kita of the United Solar Coalition Defense Force," the human said in perfect galactic standard. "You have entered the Sol system with hostile intent. Your fleet configuration, trajectory, and active weapon systems make your purpose clear." Admiral Kita leaned forward slightly. "I'm going to give you something the Council never gave us. A choice. Turn your fleet around now and leave, or stay and learn why humanity survived 4 billion years on the galaxy's cruelest planet." Kreshak felt his warriors watching him. If he retreated now, he would look weak. The Dominion would lose face. Besides, he still had 50 warships. The humans might have more ships than expected, but quantity wasn't everything. His weapons were more advanced. His crews were experienced. He could still win this. "Human Admiral," Kreshak said, trying to sound confident. "You're outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender your fleet and we'll show mercy." Keita smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Outnumbered? Let me educate you on human mathematics. You have 50 ships. We have 48 warships, 300 defense platforms, and enough automated systems to turn your fleet into scrap metal. But more importantly, you're in our home system. This is our territory, our gravity wells, our asteroid fields. We've prepared this battlefield for decades. You're bluffing." "Am I? Open fire on any of my ships and find out." Kreshak hesitated. Something in the human admiral's voice made him uncertain. She wasn't afraid. She should be afraid. His fleet was massive, powerful, experienced in combat. Yet she looked at him like he was an annoyance, not a threat. His weapons officer spoke quietly. "War Master, our sensors are detecting massive energy buildups in the human defense platforms. Whatever weapons they have, they're charging them now." "Battle stations," Kreshak ordered. "Prepare to engage." "War Master, perhaps we should—" "I said engage." The Kreshak fleet opened fire. Plasma cannons and particle beams lanced through space toward the human ships. It was a devastating barrage. Enough firepower to crack a planet. The human ships dodged. Not slowly. Not with the careful maneuvers of ships worried about fuel efficiency. They moved like fighters, like small craft, burning their engines at impossible levels. Several shots hit, but the human armor held. Barely, but it held. Then the humans returned fire. Kreshak had expected plasma weapons, maybe primitive missiles. What he got was different. The human warships launched what looked like simple metal slugs, accelerated by magnetic rails to a fraction of light speed. Kinetic kill vehicles, the most basic weapon in space combat. They were devastatingly effective. The first slug hit a Kreshak cruiser amidships. It didn't explode. It didn't need to. The impact alone, a 10-ton piece of metal moving at thousands of kilometers per second, punched straight through the ship's shields and hull. The cruiser broke in half. More slugs followed. Then missiles, thousands of them, each one maneuvering independently. The defense platforms opened fire, not with energy weapons but with point defense systems that filled space with lead. The automated satellites activated, each one a small bomb waiting to be triggered when Kreshak ships got too close. The minefield came alive. Kreshak watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. Ships exploded. Others went dark, their systems failing. His warriors tried to fight back, but the humans fought dirty. They used asteroids for cover. They hid ships behind moons and planetary rings. They'd turned their entire solar system into a weapon. Within 20 minutes, Krashak had lost 15 ships. The humans had lost none. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "Emergency jump now." But jumping to FTL took time. His ships needed to calculate safe routes, build up power in their drives. The humans knew this. They pressed their attack, targeting engines and jump drives specifically. By the time Krashak's flagship jumped to safety, he'd lost 23 ships, almost half his fleet destroyed or crippled. The survivors limped away, carrying the wounded and the traumatized. The mighty Krashak war fleet defeated by humans, by primitive, backward humans who fought with bullets and bombs. As they fled through FTL space, Krashak realized his mistake. The humans weren't lucky at Theta 9. They weren't desperate or overextended. They were experienced, prepared, and absolutely terrifying when defending their own. The galaxy had underestimated them. The Dominion had underestimated them. And now everyone would know the truth. Humanity wasn't a minor species playing at war. They were survivors from a death world, and they'd brought their planet's lessons with them to the stars. 3 weeks after the Battle of Sol, Ambassador Sarah Chen walked into the council chamber again. This time the atmosphere was completely different. Representatives still filled the circular room, but nobody shouted. Nobody made aggressive gestures. They just watched her with careful, calculating eyes. The Krashak Dominion had sued for peace. That news had spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The mighty Krashak, raiders who'd terrorized the outer colonies for decades, had surrendered to humanity after a single battle. The details made it even more shocking. Humans had destroyed or crippled 23 warships without losing a single vessel of their own. Sarah had been surprised too, honestly. She knew Earth's military was strong, but she hadn't expected such a decisive victory. Admiral Keita had explained it later. "We didn't just beat them. We fought on our terms, in our space, using tactics they'd never seen before. They thought technology wins wars. We know better. Preparation and adaptation win wars." Now the galaxy was scrambling to understand what humanity really was. Council leader Zephrix stood at the speaker's platform. His crystalline form showed neutral colors today, carefully controlled. "Ambassador Chen, welcome. The council has invited you here to discuss recent events." "Thank you, council leader. I'm happy to discuss anything. The Krashak Dominion has requested council mediation for a peace treaty with humanity. They also wish to pay reparations for their attack on your system." Sarah nodded. "We're willing to negotiate peace. As for reparations, we'll accept them on one condition. The money goes to rebuilding colonies the Krashak have raided over the past 5 years. Not to Earth." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. That wasn't the response they'd expected. Most species would have demanded payment for themselves. "Furthermore," Sarah continued, "we're willing to share our tactical data from the battle with any species that's interested. We want everyone to be able to defend themselves better." The murmurs grew louder, sharing military information. That was unheard of. Species guarded their tactical advantages jealously. Zephrix's colors flickered with confusion. "Ambassador, I don't understand. You've demonstrated superior military capabilities. You could demand almost anything from this council right now. Territory, trade advantages, a seat at the high command table. Yet you're offering to give things away?" Sarah smiled. "We don't want your high command seat, council leader. We don't want to join a system that makes people wait hours for help while filling out forms. We want something different." She pulled out a data pad and displayed a hologram for the entire chamber to see. It showed a star map with glowing lines connecting dozens of systems. "This is the Rapid Response Initiative. 23 species have joined so far. We've established shared communication protocols, coordinated patrol routes, and mutual defense agreements. When a distress call comes in, the closest ship responds immediately. No authorization delays. No bureaucratic procedures. Just help." A Quellan representative stood. "Ambassador, the council discussed your initiative. We have concerns about military forces operating without oversight." "Then join the initiative and provide that oversight," Sarah said simply. "We're not trying to replace the council. We're trying to fix a problem the council hasn't been able to solve. The raiders knew your response times and exploited them. Now they'll face something different. But without central authority, how do you prevent abuse?" the Torval representative asked. "What stops a member species from using this initiative as cover for aggressive action?" "Accountability," Sarah said. "Every response is recorded and reviewed. Every use of force must be justified. Members who abuse the system get expelled. It's actually more transparent than the current council system. Another representative from the Shrell spoke up. You've also shared weapons technology with initiative members. Doesn't that concern you? What if that technology is used against humanity? Sarah shrugged. Then we'll deal with it. But I'd rather live in a galaxy where everyone can defend themselves than one where only a few species have the power and everyone else lives in fear. The chamber fell silent. That kind of thinking was alien to most of them. Power was something you accumulated and protected. Sharing it seemed insane, but several representatives were nodding thoughtfully. Zephrix changed the subject. The Council wishes to offer humanity an official position. We would like you to join High Command and help coordinate defensive operations across all Council space. Sarah had expected this offer. It was logical from their perspective. Humanity had proven military capability. The Council wanted to absorb that capability into their existing structure. I appreciate the offer, Sarah said carefully, but I have to decline. Why? This is a tremendous honor. Only 5 species hold High Command positions. Because High Command still operates under the same rules that let people die while waiting for authorization. Because joining would mean accepting a system I fundamentally disagree with. Sarah looked around the chamber. You want us to join so you can control us. We won't let that happen. The Vrex representative's crystalline form flared with anger. You're being unreasonable. We're offering you power, influence, a voice in galactic affairs. You're offering me a seat at a table where people debate response times while civilians bleed. No thank you. Then what do you want? Zephrix demanded. You've rejected every offer we've made. You've created a competing organization. You're dividing the galaxy! Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment she'd been preparing for. We want reform, she said quietly. Real reform, not just procedures about procedures. We want the Council to admit that the current system doesn't work. We want emergency protocols that allow ships to respond immediately to distress calls. We want accountability for the colonies you've failed to protect. She pulled up more data. In the 3 weeks since we started the Rapid Response Initiative, we've answered 14 distress calls. 14 times that colonies or ships called for help. The Council's official response fleet arrived first exactly 0 times. We did, every single time. The chamber was absolutely silent now. In those 14 responses, we've saved over 2,000 lives. We've captured raiders, stopped pirates, and even helped with 2 natural disasters. And you know what? We did it without asking permission. We did it because it was the right thing to do. Velmore stood again at the guest podium. He'd been watching the proceedings quietly, but now he spoke. I've spent the past 3 weeks talking to other colony administrators, he said. Dozens of them from all across Council space. Do you know what they told me? They told me they've given up on the Council. They don't expect help anymore. They know that when raiders come, they're on their own. His voice grew stronger. But now they have hope, because the humans taught us something. They taught us that help doesn't require committees or authorization or proper procedures. Help just requires someone willing to act. He turned to face Zephrix directly. The Council talks about order and stability. But what good is order if it lets good people die? What's the point of stability if it protects systems instead of lives? Several representatives stood and began to leave. Sarah counted 7 of them, all from species whose colonies had suffered under raids. As they walked out, each one paused to nod at her. She knew what that meant. 7 more species joining the initiative. Zephrix watched them go, his form flickering through rapid color changes. This is exactly what we feared. Division. Fragmentation. The Council's authority eroding. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Sarah said gently. Maybe the Council's authority was built on fear and inertia instead of effectiveness and trust. Maybe it's time for something new. Or maybe it's time for chaos and war, the Torval representative said bitterly. That's up to you, Sarah said. The initiative isn't going away. We're going to keep responding to distress calls. We're going to keep saving lives. The Council can either adapt or become irrelevant. Your choice. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. We're not your enemies. We're not trying to destroy the Council. We're just trying to help people who need help. If the Council wants to join us in that mission, truly join us, then maybe we can work together. But it has to be on terms that actually work. As Sarah walked out of the chamber, she heard arguing erupt behind her. Good. Let them argue. Let them debate and discuss and maybe eventually change. Her aide met her at the door. Ambassador, we've received 5 new applications to join the initiative just in the past hour, and Admiral Kata is reporting another distress call from the frontier. Sarah smiled. Tell the Admiral we're on our way. What's the situation? Pirate attack on a medical transport. 3 species aboard, including some wrecked civilians. How long until we can get there? The nearest initiative ship can arrive in 45 minutes. And the Council's response fleet? The aide checked his data pad. 4 hours if they get authorization quickly. Sarah shook her head. Some things never changed. But some things did. Across the galaxy, the USCS Indomitable received the distress call. Captain Morrison studied the tactical display and smiled. Helm, set course. Full burn. Aye, Captain. ETA 38 minutes. Too slow, make it 30. Sir, that's beyond recommended parameters. They don't need recommendations. They need us. 30 minutes. The ship's engines flared bright blue as they pushed beyond their rated capacity. Around the galaxy, other initiative ships did the same. Different species, different technologies, but all moving fast toward people who needed help. The galaxy was changing. Slowly, messily, but changing. The old ways of committees and procedures were dying. Something new was being born. And at the center of it all, humanity kept doing what humans did best. Running toward danger when everyone else ran away, because someone had called for help, and that was reason enough. In the council chamber, Zephrix watched the displays showing initiative ships racing across the galaxy. He'd been part of the council for 70 years. He'd seen species rise and fall. He'd seen wars and peace progress and decline. But he'd never seen anything like this. Perhaps, he said quietly to himself, the humans are right. Perhaps we forgot what we were supposed to be doing. His aide looked at him in shock. Council leader? Zephrix's form shifted to colors that indicated deep thought and maybe, just maybe hope. Draft a proposal for emergency response protocols. Remove all authorization delays for distress calls. Any ship, council, or initiative should be able to respond immediately. He paused. And schedule a meeting with Ambassador Chen. Tell her I want to discuss cooperation, not control. The aide stammered. But sir, the other council members will adapt or be replaced. The humans showed us something important. They showed us that rules without purpose are just chains. It's time we remembered why we built this council in the first place. High above, stars shone cold and distant. But between those stars, ships moved with purpose. Ships carrying people who decided that helping others mattered more than following rules. Ships that would arrive when called, not hours later after forms were filed, but now, when help was needed. And leading them all in spirit, if not in name, were the humans. The species from Earth, the survivors. The helpers. The ones who, when asked why they did these things, always gave the same simple answer. Because someone needed help. In the end, that was enough.